emotional resistance, which I see today as the biggest block, the biggest type of resistance to sharing the gospel with people. I see it as the biggest reason that 80% of young people leave the church after confirmation. I see it as the biggest reason most people aren't attending Mass on Sundays, even though they may identify themselves as Catholic, or aren't going to church on Sundays, even though they identify themselves as Christian or religious people. Intellectual resistance is what most catechesis, most homilies, most evangelization efforts, most apologetics handbooks or cheat sheets are aimed at. You know, it's based on an assumption that if I present the truth in a logical, systematic, beautiful way, I can persuade another person to accept that truth and come around to my way of thinking and believing. And that is not true, because systematic, logically presented theology does not overcome emotional resistance. That requires a deeper understanding of it on its own merits and some specific tools and strategies to lower that resistance. The language underneath that emotional resistance is someone, something, or some experience has hurt me, let me down, or disappointed me so badly that I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm resentful, I may even be resigned and detached, so that I don't get that hurt, that let down, or that disappointed that badly ever again. And that presents itself in many forms. But a lot of times, especially in young people and young adults, they don't have that language. You know, that's a real sophisticated type of language. But most people, that's not what's going on consciously in their minds. What's going on consciously for them is, life sucks. I'm hurting. I'm experiencing pain. And I don't know who to blame it on, or I won't give myself permission to blame it on who's responsible. Or, how do you blame an experience, something as nebulous and vague as an experience? Who do you blame Katrina on? And so what often happens, not just in young people, but in adults as well, is when we can't find something to hang it on, we will then put it on to God. God becomes a convenient scapegoat, just as he always has. But most of us, I know, are too sophisticated to say, well, God took this person out of my life. God set my house on fire so that I'd have to know how to do without, or God caused Katrina, or God caused Hurricane Lily, or, you know, God caused the tsunami. You know, and some people say that, and that's just whack. And we know better than that. But a lot of times, theologically, we'll go in there and try to say, well, that's in God's passive will, making a distinction between God's active will, something like the incarnation, sending Jesus, and what he chooses to do actively, and the difference between that and things that he allows to happen. But when someone is hurting, that distinction does no good. It's lost on them, and it's like Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 wah. That does no good. They're hurting, and what they want us to do is to address that hurt. That hurt. And so a lot of times what they'll say, that they may not be able to say, well, God caused this, but what they're thinking, sometimes consciously, often unconsciously, is, if God is as good as you say God is, father, teacher, mom, dad, adult, peer minister, then why would he allow this to happen to me? Why would he allow me to be raped? Why would he allow me to be sexually abused? Why would he have allowed everything to be taken away from me in Katrina? Why would he have allowed my parents to divorce? Why would he have allowed me to have to live the rest of my teenage years in a suitcase going back and forth between mom and dad? Why would he allow me to be in this depression? Why would he allow me to be in this funk? And so then it becomes God's fault. And so any attempt on our part to try to explain that pain away intellectually, or even to answer the questions, because a lot of times they're voiced as intellectual questions. Because a young person, especially a young person's, not going to say that in class. You know, they'll get crucified if they say things like that in class or confirmation or in most religious education programs. So they'll raise their hand and ask a question like this. So tell me again how the church gets off on telling people that annulment makes a parent's marriage never existed. You know, what's up with that? That's what that question's saying. But underneath that question, behind that question is a deeper concern about a good God who they want to believe loves them. Who they want to believe loves them and who wants to love him, and often, very often, loves God. Underneath that is a hurting young person who just wants to know, why would a good God allow me to hurt like that? And you cannot answer that question. There is no answer to that question. That is the great mystery. In fact, we call it the Paschal mystery. And then, especially in the lives of young people, no intellectual response to that will be, or answer to that question is going to be satisfactory. So we've got to make the shift between answering the question and addressing the issue. And that is truly how Jesus taught. You know, when we talk about to teach as Jesus did, that's how Jesus, very seldom in the Gospels you'll hear Jesus answering a question. Jesus perceives the deeper issue and he addresses the deeper issue. And so a lot of times, you know, one simple technique is, you know, well, what do you think about that? You know, and we're afraid to give young people a voice because they're going to say something scandalous about God. God can take a punch. God can take a punch. God wants that young person to express what's going on in there. You know, we don't have time for that. And I know that those sorts of things get in the way of us getting the curriculum done. And I'm not knocking curriculum. It's awesome. But curriculums are meant to guide, not to drive us. They're meant to guide us. To keep us in the general direction, but not driving us so fast that we can't stop and pause and be there and perceive what's going on deeper in the life of a young person. And maybe we don't do it during class. Maybe we pull them aside after class and say, hey, what's really going on here? And just validate their question, validate their issue, validate their concern. Because that's what's going on in the deeper sense beyond that question. More on emotional resistance coming up soon. Thanks for tuning in, and you can definitely read more on the blog at bigbaldspeaker.com. God bless.